Hey there, business owners, directors, and marketeers. In today's show, I'm meeting Nicolas Vandenberghe. I'm Lucas, your host as always, and I want to tell you a little bit about Nicolas before we actually get started. It's a very interesting episode today because he is running two businesses, ChiliPiper and Gypsy Time. And basically, we want to learn all about what he's been learning on the one side and transforming that into his new business. A little bit of background about Nicolas. He has studied math in Paris at Ecole Polytechnique and also went through the Stanford Business School. He's been working on several tech companies and actually has been selling some of them as well. Ran sales for a $2 billion telecom company and negotiating very big deals with companies like Google. So I'm very excited to have Nicolas on the show today. Welcome to today's episode.
Thank you, Lucas. Happy to be here.
Very, very good. So yeah, I mentioned there's ChiliPiper and there's Gypsy Time. Maybe tell us a little bit about the two companies that you're running. What are they for and how they come to existence?
Yeah, so like many entrepreneurs, I love starting companies, and I start companies to do what I love and to fix the problems I have. So I started ChiliPiper to change the way salespeople operate and help them with more modern digital tools. I was running, as you mentioned, a sales team for a large telecom company. I saw that my sales reps hated having to do with the CRM. They thought it was actually an impediment to their job, not something that was helpful. So I thought, well, the future is going to look very different now that there's all these digital tools like iPhone and things of this nature. There's going to be a new wave of sales tech that's going to help reps do their job as opposed to make their job more difficult. So that was ChiliPiper. We started it. We're doing great. And as I was busy running ChiliPiper, I was always trying to find new ways to get more productive myself, and I tried a million of different to-do lists to make sure I keep track of the things I had to do, and I was not happy with any of them. What I found is that my to-do list kept growing, and I would carry more and more tasks, and eventually you think, okay, I just shouldn't look at it. This is too much. It's too scary, and I realized that the to-do list have the wrong focus. They have the focus on list, and they should have the focus on to-do. Yeah. Right. So I decided to create a to-do that's there to help people achieve things, so actually deliver. And I started with the number one problem, which is focus. So when you start a task, you get sidetracked. You look at other things because you're in your browser and you see another tab, and then you see something interesting, or you get pinged. So that's when I realized that nothing like that existed. I decided to start another company on the side to build it. It's called Gypsy Time. It's a very simple concept. We call it an active task manager because you can bookmark any tab you're on as a task to do later, and when you're ready, you click on it, and we close all the tabs. We let you focus on what you're doing. When you finish, you say, "I'm finished." We open all the tabs. We even let you know how much time you spent on it, so you can see if you're spending your time efficiently, and we let you back to your activities. So that's Gypsy Time. It's brand new. It's about to launch, and it has worked really, really well for me. I feel much more productive than before, and I can't wait to hear what other people are going to tell us.
Yeah, I was about to ask, how does your to-do list, or your do list, as you would say, look like today?
It's about to be released in beta. We had the website where we would let people request invites. We got a lot of those, so we're going to send out these invites. It does the job really, really well. It's a very simple. That's what one thing I've learned in my experience in software. That simple always beats advanced. So you think you're going to do something advanced with a lot of ways to automate certain things, but that's confusing. Way if you can do something simple but really, really well, you have a much higher rate of adoption. So Gypsy Time is very simple. You in 2 clicks, you put our Chrome extension. Next thing, anything you task you have to do is you can bookmark in 2 clicks. When you're ready, you start, you press a button, we close all the tabs, we let you focus. When you finish, you press another button where you open the tabs. It's as simple as it gets. Of course, there's a lot more work behind it, but it works beautifully.
And who would be the typical user? Is that like business owners like yourself, or can that be everybody?
I do hope that every business owner like myself becomes a user. I think it's the ideal tool for us. We're very busy. We have to reserve time to focus on certain things, and other times we have to respond to Slack and email and other channels. So that's definitely a set of persona. But really, it's broader than that. Anybody who has a lot of tasks and has to juggle among them is a potential target. So a product manager, a marketer, a operation, self-employed, anybody who has a lot of different things to achieve during the day.
Very, very cool. I'm very interested because it's a unique situation today where you have growing up that one company, ChiliPiper, and now building up the next company. I would be curious in terms of channels, right? Maybe when we're looking at ChiliPiper for a moment, how would typically the users find the product? Like, what are channels that have been working really well, and what have you learned sort of for your new businesses that you will take with you?
Yeah, so for sure, the channels are very different between ChiliPiper and Gypsy Time. In ChiliPiper, we started with as direct an approach as we could. Actually went to meetups and met people and sold them on ChiliPiper. So it was actually not only direct but offline. That's how we got started. I signed at least 100 customers that way, meeting in person and getting them to use the software. And then, of course, gradually we extended our channels to the point where we are today. There's one nice thing about ChiliPiper. We started with helping salespeople with their scheduling. Mm-hmm. So it's an online scheduling. So when they send a link, say, here's my calendar, book a time yourself, the person who's booking the time is exposed to our solution. And we got a lot of what we call viral prospect that way, because they say, well, I love that experience, I'm going to go and try it. So that's how we got started. Now we have a reputation in the space. People think of us, as soon as they think of advanced scheduling or scheduling for that are a bit more complicated than just betting times, they come to ChiliPiper. So we have a reasonable level of inbound that are from our reputation. We last year started building our outbound channel, so we now have a small but growing SDR team that's doing extremely well, reaching out to potential accounts. And we're going to start doing more traditional marketing, like PR and paid advertising. We have had some success on LinkedIn on the paid advertising, and probably would grow more this channel. So we're moving now to a fairly, what would say, full stack in terms of customer acquisition, from outbound, inbound, paid events, marketing. We also have, with the same idea of solving our own problems, we found that trade shows and events are a good channel to acquire customers. We found that the key thing to do in these places is to either have meetings ahead of time or book meetings while you're on the trade show. Yeah. Of course, being in the meeting booking business, we thought, well, we need to solve that problem. So we launched a solution specifically for events and trade shows to help companies book meetings ahead of a time at a trade show, or book meeting on the floor of the trade show in a very efficient way. So that's interesting, because it's a marketing channel that became a product for us. So that's ChiliPiper. We, as I said, in a more mature marketing approach now. Gypsy Time is at the very beginning. We as I mentioned earlier, in beta, we're going to launch. our approach is we're going to reach out to the more influential users. Actually, Lucas, you'll be on my list.
Appreciate it. Looking forward to it.
To try the software, get feedback. What happened in SaaS is that you have to optimize the product first. You have to get adoption, and you have to be at least you have to have negative churn, which is positive net retention. And if you go to market before you've achieved that, then you're throwing money out the window, because you're bringing people who are going to disappear, and you in an endless loop of having to constantly bring in more people. So we're at that first stage right now, where we're going to put out the product and see if we get people to keep using it. So we'll do that with a limited sample, like a few dozens to a few hundreds users. And once we pass that threshold, then we'll go into a more aggressive and broad customer acquisition strategy.
Very cool. And anybody who's listening who would be interested in being in that first batch, what should they do?
They should go to Gypsy Time. So the spelling, the real question how to spell Gypsy is Gipsy, and then time, Time. We went with, so I'm French originally. You may know the band called Gypsy Kings. They decided that Gypsy was spelled Gipsy, and we thought, okay, if that's what they decide, that's what we should do. Yeah, so it's a play on word, like with Gypsy. My wife is Romanian, and been exposed to the Gypsy culture. This idea that they can read the time and read the future, and so we said that's a good word to go with time, and the app that can help with your time and make your future better. So yeah, they can come to Gypsy Time, and it's a 3-click process to set it up. It's very straightforward to try, and just email me to send me your feedback.
Very, very cool. There is one thing that I was very interested about. So guys who are listening to the episode today, we're going to be jumping a little bit between ChiliPiper and Gypsy Time, just so to really learn the most from Nicolas. Nicolas, one thing that I was very curious about is you mentioned that for ChiliPiper you started to have now SDRs working, so starting your outbound work. Before you were doing the sort of, qualification through SDRs, how are you thinking about, qualification from an inbound perspective, which was what you were doing before? Was there some processes, something that you learned? What would be really important? Would be curious to learn about that a little bit.
That's a very interesting question that is quite core to ChiliPiper. So let me first, our core product at ChiliPiper, I mentioned it's around scheduling, but it's more advanced than that. Our core product is around inbound. So people come to our inbound site. In the traditional model, people fill a form and they get a thank you page. Thank you, somebody's going to call you. And companies like Pathmonk make sure to help how the likelihood that the person is going to actually volunteer to get a demo. And I actually think it's brilliant how Pathmonk can help the conversion to that stage. So ChiliPiper takes from there. When in the traditional model, you fill a form, you click submit, and you get thank you, somebody's going to call you, and you're left wondering who is going to call me and when. Yeah. With ChiliPiper, we have a smart agent that goes into the page, and when you click on submit the form, we qualify in real time, and we do that by using the field in the form or additional data that we can gather. Mm-hmm. And based on that, we actually reach out in real time to the rep. We connect either on the phone, or we retrieve the calendar and we book the prospect. So to your question, how did we qualify? We found that in our case, we can ask the question in the form of that are relevant to us. So for a long time, we only worked for companies on Salesforce. Mm-hmm. So if a company was not on Salesforce, it was not a prospect. So we'd ask, are you on Salesforce? If they were not on Salesforce, we'd say, thank you, page, thank you. We currently don't support that. We'll reach out to you. And if they did, then we'd connect directly to the salespeople. In our case, we have found that it's pretty much good enough for us to ask this question. A lot of companies says to qualify, you have to have proven that the prospect has some pain, mm-hmm. right? But in our case, our solution typically double conversion rates on the inbound. So you don't need pain. You just need to be aware that you can do better. It's a bit like I often tell people when iPhone came out in 2009, I think, I didn't need iPhone. I had a Sony Ericsson. I loved it. I had no pain. If you had asked me, do you have a pain in your phone? No. It was really, I loved it, my Sony Ericsson. But then you see iPhone and say, well, that looks a lot better. Right? Mm-hmm. That is just a better way. It's a bit, I'm sure you have the same thing at PathMonk where people think their website is fine and then say, well, you can do a lot better. And then they say, oh, I should do better. So who's qualified for that? Well, everybody, because everybody can do better. And that's your situation, I think, and it's our situation where I tell myself, right, you can't disqualify a meeting because somebody has not agreed to engage. It means that you failed at showing the value. It doesn't mean that person was completely qualified in using our tool to do a better job. So in our case, it's quite straightforward. We found that by asking a couple of questions in the form, we found that's our qualification process. A lot of our customers are not as lucky, and they need to do some additional steps. So, for example, some of them have so many leads that they only want to talk to those who are serious. One example is Twilio. So Twilio is one of our customers. They've been fortunate to, or maybe by design, to become very well known and generate a lot of traffic on their website. And their challenge is not so much to book meetings, is to book the right meetings. So in that case, what we have found is that they have a certain scoring from their website. This scoring can be passed on to the form as a hidden value. I'm getting a bit technical there, but
fine.
I'm sure your audience will understand. And that implicit qualification from the behavior is passed on. As I said, from the hidden value, and can be used to decide to book a meeting or not book a meeting. So that's a very effective way to qualify based on behavior. And a lot of customers are using this solution. Another one is if you really can't tell from the behavior nor from asking a question, then what we do is that we make sure that there's what people call an inbound SDR who is going to be the first step. So we will actually dial in real time the inbound SDR, get them on the phone as fast as possible, and that the SDR actually asks a question. For example, a question at Twilio, they always ask, do you already have a project? Are you already working on something? Because if you're not working on something, then it's not worth our time. So the SDR will nicely ask, thank you for your interest. Have you already started working on a project? Have you deployed resources around your integration with telephony? And if so, then yes, we'll book a meeting with you. So this is the different flavors of qualification and how to handle qualification that we've been exposed to.
Very, very, very good. And that's sort of this routing is also what you're offering in the tool, right? That an SDR could then pick up the phone and call it.
That's exactly right. That routing, so qualification and routing is what we do. We route to phone, or we route to calendar. We even route to video calls. In some cases, people use us in app where your mode analytics, for example, if you're in the app and you want to talk to somebody instead of so chatting is okay, but video call is much better because you can see the person, you can share screen, you can do a lot more. So imagine this beautiful world where you can get an instant video call. You say, I need help, boom, you click, boom, there's somebody there. It's like the magic lamp, so you need so, but that's what we enable. You click on a button, next thing you have a video call with somebody who's going to share your screen and help you solve the problem. So that's another use case that we cover at Ecole ChiliPiper.
Very, very, very cool. Nice. So we learned a lot about how you're thinking about sort of the website and the qualification process. There may be one last question there before we jumping a little bit into you as a founder a little bit more. I have to ask this, being from PathMonk, how do you think about sort of conversions on the website? What have you been trying, or what have you been learning in order to, increase conversions from the website for those signups, for the, demos?
I have a confession to make. At ChiliPiper, we've been lagging a bit on our marketing. So I just hired a CMO less than 2 months ago. A great guy. He's putting together that team. So we're not as advanced as we should have been on how we handle the website. So the way we had set up was very basic. We had landing pages and we didn't even have marketing automation, so we didn't even track what people do, and we didn't have the right attribution. So I wish I could give better insights into how to do it right, but this will be in 6 months, hopefully, that I'll be able to share that. So we did just the basics. I see now how on-site optimization, right, conversion rate optimization is so critical, because you do bring this traffic to your website, and it's like bringing people to your store and not showing the merchandise, or hiding the merchandise in the back. So I can see how we're going to stop the waste very soon.
That's very good to hear. Very, very cool. Very nice. So let's maybe slightly switch gears a little bit and maybe learn about you a little bit as a leader before we're wrapping up the interview. How would you describe now I'm so curious, being within these two companies, how would you describe your personal goal? Like, how do you define your goals, and what are they? Are they split between the companies? Is it one, like, how does it look like?
Well, the two companies are a bit accidental. I tell everybody at ChiliPiper, now that I've done it, I realize it's not a good idea, and I don't want anybody else to do it in the company. It's very difficult to have these two jobs. But I also tell everybody that everyone should do what they love. We're fortunate right now to live in good economic times, where there are many jobs and many options, and the result, nobody should be stuck in a job they don't like. And as for me, I absolutely love what I do. I love helping salespeople. I love this work on Gypsy Time to do productivity. The other thing, there are two important philosophies, I would say, that at ChiliPiper and soon at Gypsy Time. ChiliPiper is a fully distributed company, so we have 42 employees in 36 cities and 15 countries.
Wow.
So the idea that there are smart people everywhere, and we want to hire wherever they are. So we have people all the way to Moscow, Brazil, Slovakia. And the next step is, once you found these smart people where they are, you want to let them live where they want. So we've hired people in Colorado who are now in Colombia, the country Colombia, and plan to move to Madrid. Another guy was in Portugal, just because they can, right? So that's a very important piece of our approach to management, is we have this view people should do what they love and live where they want, and there are smart people everywhere. And then another piece of our approach, which is, I think, also the future, I do believe that being distributed is the future, is the focus on people growth. So there's this book called The Growth Mindset, where I can't remember the name of the author, but she basically explains that there's been a lot of experiences where if you explain to kids and even adults how they should always think of themselves as on the way to improve, as opposed to whether they have fixed abilities. So it's a difference between fixed abilities and learned abilities. So they can always improve, then you'll achieve amazing results. And we very much focus on that at ChiliPiper. We have this approach that we call management by growth. So there's management by objectives, management by activities, and management by growth. Management by growth means that you set up objectives. So you have an aspect of management by objectives where everybody has what we call OKR. Mm-hmm. But if you don't meet your OKR, you don't get fired, right? If you don't meet your OKR, we think it's our responsibility to help you meet them. and to understand what it takes to meet them, and to be able to explain, you did not meet these OKR, but this is what you're missing. In some cases, we may find that it's going to be very difficult to take you to meet these OKRs because there are certain natural traits that are important and would take a long time. But in any case, we want to try. We want to help. So this idea that you say, oh, you don't meet your goals, you're fired, is, from my perspective, declining responsibility. I bring you on board. I want you to meet certain goals. I got to be able to tell you how you're going to meet these goals and what it takes to meet these goals. And if I can't provide that, then I'm a wrong employer, because I can't ask you to do something that I don't know how to do. So that's our approach to think. As a consequence of that, we focus a lot on training, as you could imagine. We focus a lot of learning best practices across the board. We make sure that we help our employees as much as we can. So that's our number one core value of the company, is help.
Very, very cool. Maybe to slowly wrap it up, because I want to be respectful of your time with this episode as well, I would be just very curious, maybe two last questions. The first would be, where and how do you educate yourself forward? You mentioned the book there, but where do you get your sort of, new insights, new knowledge? Is that with other founders? Is that books? Is that blogs, podcasts? Where do you educate yourself?
Yeah, all the above. For sure, I have a lot of books on my Kindle. I also listen to a lot of podcasts and read a lot of blogs. I must say it's a very, very good source. And then when I go to conferences or events, I always try to ask people what they do right and how they do things and what I can learn from them. So, make sure that we take advantage of meeting somebody to learn what can be learned.
Very cool. And what would be a topic that you recently researched? Maybe the last thing that you really bite your teeth in?
So right now, I spend a lot of time on a topic dear to your heart, which is online customer acquisition. Right, as I mentioned, we've hired a CMO. We now need to move to the next stage at ChiliPiper. Soon it's going to be the same thing for Gypsy Time. So I'm spending a lot of time researching the best practices in online acquisition, the best practice in content marketing, the best practices in conversion rate optimization. Right before that, I was a lot more focused on sales and what makes a great salesperson and what techniques a salesperson should learn. It's a big space. There's a lot to learn.
Very, very cool. Just to wrap this up, what would be one thing that if you would restart, I mean, you just restarted another company, so it's a little bit unfair, but let's put yourself back into the days of starting ChiliPiper. One thing that you learned in your journey that you would sort of give yourself as an advice?
I would say that from the very beginning, you want to make sure that you've integrated the go-to-market process with the product. Mm-hmm. So I mentioned early in the call, the number one thing to be successful in SaaS is to have a strong product. You cannot succeed with but once you have a strong product, you have to align the go-to-market strategies with it. And if you misalign, then you have the risk of misreading the market and thinking your product isn't as strong that it is, but it's just because you haven't brought it to the right people. So that alignment. So in our space, there are companies that have done a really good job at it and making sure that they've aligned their customer acquisition with their product adoption, right? So and thought of it as a full buyer journey. And I think we could have done that a lot better at ChiliPiper. As I mentioned, I called in person to people and said, try our software. People would try our software. We try to make our software easy to use. But the whole idea of going through the entire buyer journey and thinking of it as a whole is something that I missed in the beginning of the company.
Very, very interesting learning. And thanks for sharing this, Nicolas. And overall, thanks for giving us your valuable time, sharing about your experiences with both companies, what you learned along the way, and also how you're thinking about management more from a growth angle rather than anything else. So thanks a lot for sharing and being part of this episode today.
My pleasure.